Post 1. Am I the jerk for not letting my in-laws make our life decisions? I know the title sounds like I'm leaving out a lot, but this is a long, slow-burning situation. My wife and I have been together for almost 10 years, married for 6, and I have spent all of those years dealing with her parents' intense involvement in our lives. From the very start, they made it clear they had plans for their daughter, and by extension, for me. I grew up in a small, working-class family, so I was raised to handle my own problems, keep my word, and stay polite even when people are being unreasonable. That has been tested more times than I can count since marrying into her family. Her parents are the kind who believe there's a right way to do everything. Their way. When we were dating, they'd invite us to dinner, and then spend half the evening giving unsolicited advice on next steps for our lives, where to live, what kind of wedding we should have, when to start having kids. I chalked it up to overenthusiasm at first. Then came the wedding. I'm not exaggerating when I say they tried to plan the entire thing. The guest list ballooned from 60 to 200 because they couldn't possibly leave out extended relatives I'd never met. They even tried to change the date to something more auspicious, according to my mother-in-law's favorite numerology website. My wife and I compromised more than we wanted, but it was our first big lesson that saying no to them was like throwing a rock at a hornet's nest. After we got married, it didn't stop. They insisted we live in a certain neighborhood so we'd be near the right schools. Never mind that we didn't have kids yet. When we bought a modest house in a different part of town, they treated it like we'd ruined our lives. I work in IT and my wife's in marketing, and we both do fine. But they talk to us like we're teenagers who just spent all our money on video games. I've always kept my cool, even when my father-in-law accidentally forwarded me an email where he called me dead weight. I just let it go. It wasn't worth the fight. My wife knows they can be overbearing, but she's close to them and tends to downplay their behavior. The latest thing, and the reason I'm here, started about a year ago when they began seriously pressuring us about kids. They've been hinting for years, but now it's full-on interrogations every holiday. Why are you waiting? You're not getting any younger. We'll pay for the nursery. They even offered to cover IVF, if necessary. A generous offer, sure, but one that came with an unspoken contract that they'd get a say in raising the child. I stayed calm, kept deflecting, and focused on my wife's comfort. She wasn't ready, and that was enough for me. But my in-laws started acting like I was the one holding things up, painting me as selfish for denying them a grandchild. I've been called controlling, ironic considering, unambitious, even emotionally withholding. They've pulled my wife aside more than once to suggest she rethink our marriage if I wasn't going to step up. She told me about it, trying to laugh it off, but I could see it bothered her. This has been going on for years. Every family event feels like a gentle but constant shove toward a life they've mapped out for us. I've swallowed my pride, kept my tone calm, and avoided giving them an outburst they can use against me. But with the way things are escalating, I'm starting to wonder if that's actually the problem. That they see my composure as a green light to keep pushing. I haven't even gotten to the recent bombshell yet, but I'll save that for part 2 because this is already way too long. Let's just say they're about to get exactly what they've been asking for, and I'm bracing myself for the fallout. Post 2. They finally got what they wanted, and now it's not enough. So, here's the plot twist my in-laws didn't see coming. My wife is pregnant. We found out 2 months ago. It wasn't planned, we'd been careful, but life has its own timing. When she first told me, My reaction was probably boring compared to what they'll tell their friends someday. I hugged her, told her we'd figure it out together, and immediately started looking into budget adjustments and scheduling changes at work. I was calm, because that's how I am. My wife says it's one of the things that makes her feel safe with me. We agreed we'd keep it quiet until she hit the 12-week mark, not just for the usual reasons, but because we knew exactly how her parents would react, and we wanted to enjoy those first weeks without the pressure cooker they'd create. Of course, that didn't last. My wife had mild morning sickness at a family lunch, and her mom immediately pounced. "You look pale. Are you sure you're not pregnant?" My wife froze, and I could see her weighing whether to lie. She's never been a great liar. Within 5 minutes, it was out. Her mom gasped, her dad clapped his hands, and the interrogation began. Due date? Gender? Have we picked names? Will we move into their neighborhood now? Who's going to be in the delivery room? We'd barely gotten home when my wife's phone started lighting up with Pinterest nursery boards, links to must-have baby gadgets, and offers for them to help manage our finances, so we'd be ready. They started texting me directly too, which they've never done unless it's a complaint, with lists of parenting classes, stroller comparisons, and their preferred pediatrician. I kept my responses polite but short. Thanks, we'll think about it. We appreciate the suggestions. My wife appreciated that I wasn't snapping, but I could see she was getting overwhelmed. They even offered to pay her to quit her job so she could focus on the baby, which on the surface sounds generous. But we both know the strings attached would be endless. The thing is, they're not satisfied. At least once a week now, there's some new demand. A family name we must use, a parenting method we must follow. They've already scheduled a family meeting for next month to make sure we're on the same page about child rearing. We didn't agree to that. They just told us it was happening. The most bizarre part? They seem almost annoyed that we didn't get pregnant sooner. My father-in-law actually said, "If you'd listened to us years ago, we'd already have a kindergartner by now." I just nodded and changed the subject because arguing with him is like arguing with a brick wall. We're still months away from the due date, but I'm already feeling like I'll have to be the bad guy if we want any boundaries at all. I've spent nearly a decade being the calm, reasonable one in this family, and I think they've mistaken it for me being a pushover. If they think I'm just going to hand them the steering wheel for our child's life, they're in for a rude awakening. Post 3. The family meeting was a trap. The so-called family meeting was this past Saturday, and I should have trusted my gut when I said to my wife, "We shouldn't go." We went anyway. She said it would be easier to just listen, nod, and then do what we wanted later. And I agreed, partly because I still wanted to believe her parents meant well, even if their methods were overbearing. We walked into their house and immediately realized this wasn't a casual sit-down. Her mom had set out a binder. Not just a few notes, a binder organized into tabs: pregnancy, labor and delivery, baby's first year, parenting principles, and long-term plan. I'm not making that up. She handed us copies. The first tab was pregnancy, which included things like no caffeine, even though my wife's OB already said a small amount was fine, and no travel after 20 weeks. Our baby moon plans were for week 24. I stayed quiet. Tab 2 was labor and delivery, which they'd already decided would take place at their preferred hospital. Not the one we're registered at, but one closer to their house. And naturally, both of them planned to be in the delivery room to support my wife. By the third tab, baby's first year, my patience was starting to wear thin. They'd already picked a daycare, without asking about our work schedules, dictated that we'd use cloth diapers, and planned Sunday dinners every week at their place so the baby learns family values. Then came the long-term plan, which I admit almost made me laugh. They'd listed appropriate extracurriculars: sports yes, theater no, music lessons only if practical instruments like piano, and had even written a provisional discipline policy, as if our kid was a corporation and they were drafting bylaws. When I asked, "Where do we get a say in all this?" her dad looked at me like I'd asked what planet we were on. "You'll have plenty of say," he said, "but we're the experienced ones. We know what works." That's when I finally stopped being polite. I told them we appreciated their concern, but these decisions weren't theirs to make. That our baby isn't their do-over child. That we have our own values, schedules, and plans, and we won't be signing off on a binder like we're entering into a business contract. It went over about as well as you'd expect. Her mom accused me of shutting out family. Her dad muttered about me not respecting tradition. And my wife sat there, caught in the crossfire. She didn't side with them, but she didn't speak up for me either. Not in that moment. We left with the binder in hand. It's sitting on our kitchen table right now, still unopened since we got home. I think they realized they can't bulldoze me outright, because the texts I've been getting since then are all sugary on the surface, but loaded underneath. Just wanted to check in on our baby. Hope you're resting. Stress is bad for the baby. They think this is just a bump in the road. I have a feeling it's actually the beginning of a much bigger fight. Post 4, they showed up at our doctor's appointment. This week was supposed to be a quiet one. We had our 20-week ultrasound on Tuesday, and my wife and I were looking forward to it. It's one of those milestone appointments, the one where you get the good, clear images, and maybe find out the gender if you want to. We didn't invite anyone. It was going to be just us. But when we walked into the clinic, who did we see sitting in the waiting room? Her parents. Both of them. Her mom was flipping through a baby name book like she owned the place, and her dad was sipping coffee, legs crossed like he was waiting for a business meeting to start. I asked, "What are you doing here?" Her mom smiled like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "We wouldn't miss this. You should have told us the time. But luckily your sister-in-law mentioned it when she overheard you talking last week. That means they're now fishing for info through extended family." I told them it was a private appointment. But my wife froze. She clearly didn't want to make a scene in public. Her mom then added, "We already spoke to the receptionist and told her we're family, so we'll just come in with you." That's when I stepped in. I walked to the receptionist and quietly explained they were not authorized, that they weren't on any of the medical forms, and that we wanted privacy. The receptionist understood immediately and told them they'd have to wait outside. You'd think I'd kicked them out of their own home. Her mom started loudly saying I was isolating my wife from her family during the most vulnerable time of her life. And her dad accused me of hiding something about the pregnancy. We went into the appointment without them. The ultrasound was beautiful. The baby is healthy, strong, and stubborn, kept turning away from the camera. But the mood was tense. My wife was upset. Not at me exactly, but at the situation. She said she wished everyone could just get along. When we came out, her parents were gone. But there was a note tucked under my windshield wiper. It said, "We're not the enemy. Don't make us act like one." I showed it to my wife, and she went pale. She said it was probably just them being dramatic. But to me, it read like a threat. Since then, they've been texting her directly, offering to take her away for a few days so she can rest. Without me. And last night, we heard from her cousin that her parents have been asking around about our pediatrician options, as if they're planning to be the decision makers. I'm starting to think this isn't just overbearing behavior. This is about control, and they're not going to stop unless we make them stop. Post 5. They're trying to claim grandparent rights before the baby is born. If I thought the note on my windshield was a threat, this week confirmed it. On Thursday, my wife got a knock on the door while I was at work. She opened it to find a process server handing her an envelope. Inside, a formal petition for grandparent visitation rights. Let me repeat that. The baby isn't even born yet. The petition read like a work of fiction. It claimed my wife was isolated and emotionally unstable due to her husband's controlling behavior, that her parents had been the primary caregivers during her pregnancy, and that they feared I would withhold access to the child to punish them. They even claimed they'd provided financial support for the baby. The only thing they've given was an unsolicited crib we told them we didn't want, and even that came with strings attached. My wife was shaking when she called me. She kept saying she didn't know how it had come to this, that she just wanted to have a healthy pregnancy without all this chaos. I told her I was coming straight home. When I arrived, she had her laptop open, Googling, "Can grandparents get rights before a baby is born?" Short answer, no, not in our state. But that didn't make it less scary. Even if the petition is legally ridiculous, it's a declaration of war. We called a lawyer immediately. He confirmed that the filing wouldn't go anywhere right now, but he also warned us, they're making a paper trail. They're setting up to challenge you once the baby arrives. That hit me like a punch to the gut. It's not just about the birth anymore. They're trying to wedge themselves into a permanent role of authority in our child's life. And if they can't get it willingly, they'll try to get it legally. 2 days later, they showed up at our door again. This time, my wife refused to answer. They stood outside for nearly 15 minutes, knocking and calling her name. I recorded the whole thing. Then her mom shouted through the door, "You won't be able to keep us away forever. You need us more than you know." I've been calm up to this point. I've tried to see it as just overprotective parents adjusting to the idea of their child starting her own family. But after this week, I'm done pretending it's normal. They're not going to stop, and if we don't draw a hard line now, they'll steamroll us for the next 18 years. Post 6. We're done, for good. Yesterday morning, we met with our lawyer in person. He had reviewed the so-called grandparent rights petition and the mountain of text messages and recordings we've collected over the past month. His first words to us were, "You need to protect yourselves now, not later." He said their petition was already a red flag to any judge, and paired with the harassment and threats, it could be enough to justify a restraining order. My wife's face went pale when she heard that word. She never wanted to imagine things getting this bad with her own parents. We talked it over for hours. Every part of me wanted to just ignore them and hope they'd get bored. But then I remembered the knocks on the door, the notes on the car, the way they've been telling anyone who will listen that we are unfit parents for a baby who hasn't even been born. So we filed. The restraining order request went in yesterday afternoon. It includes no contact until further notice, no visits to our home, no direct communication, and no third-party messengers trying to guilt us into relenting. Our lawyer says that once it's approved, any violation could land them in legal trouble fast. When the papers were served, her parents didn't even try to hide their outrage. They started calling from unknown numbers, leaving voicemails about how we'll regret cutting out family and how a judge will see the truth. I didn't answer a single one. The last straw came just an hour after the papers were delivered. An email from her mother to my work address, full of self-pity and Darvo nonsense about how we're the ones abusing them. She even claimed this was all for the baby's own good. Number. It's not for the baby's good to grow up thinking this level of manipulation and control is normal. It's not for the baby's good to have people in their life who see boundaries as challenges, not limits. Our child will be born into a home where love doesn't come with conditions. I know this will probably cause a storm when the baby arrives. They'll try to use the birth as an excuse to push back in. But after everything they've shown us, I have no intention of opening that door again, legally or otherwise. We've changed our phone numbers. We've blocked every email. We've told friends and family that we will not be relaying messages between them and us. And I'm at peace with it. They had every chance to be the kind of grandparents our child could look up to. Instead, they chose control, lies, and legal threats. We're done for good.